Uganda is now faced with a new phase of terror, tactics involving radicalized Ugandans acting as suicide bombers ready to walk into martyrdom. Using improvised explosive devices, young Ugandans are now blowing up themselves and targeting innocent people. The two bombings in Kampala on Tuesday now pass a new challenge to the security forces on how to fight the new form of terrorism attributed to the Allied Democratic Forces. Tonight we host State Minister for Internal Affairs, General David Muhoozi, Busiro East MP Medard Sseggona, and Dr. Bainomugisha, the Executive Director, ACODE. General Muhoozi, Dr. Bainomugisha, and Honorable Sseggona, gentlemen, thank you so much for having honored our invitation. I can assure you, Uganda is just watching right now, and the discussion begins right now. I must say, a warm welcome to the three of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Let me begin with you, General Muhoozi, because you are in Parliament, you are a security minister, you are Minister of Internal Affairs, but also, just until recently, you are Chief of Defense Forces. Information reaching our desk as a newsroom indicate that today there was a killing of a suspect in Nsangi, a man who was suspected to be a mastermind of terror in Kampala. His child recounts to us that his father was taken out of his house on handcuffs and then summarily executed. Why are you killing suspects?
Good evening, viewers. Thank you, Mr. Kamara. I haven't been given the details of that incident, but I know that indeed following the attacks of Tuesday, security operations have been going on in the country to track down those responsible or their remnants, because there are some sleeper cells of the ADF. And like you know, in the wake of the attack itself, what would have been the third bomb bearer was also pursued by the security forces, and that's how even the devices were found at his home in Katoke in Nansana. So about this incident, I'll find out more, and then maybe at some time after this, we can share the details. Maybe
a little bit that I can tell you, perhaps you can know, that a gentleman by the name of Muhammad Kirevu Abbas of Nsangi, suspected terror mastermind in Kampala. Today, security operatives reached his home. His child recounting to us that his father was pulled out of the house and handcuffed. And thereafter, his father was shot dead. That is extrajudicial. That is what happened.
I wouldn't want to comment without further and better particulars about the incident. If it is about that Muhammad Abbas, otherwise also known as Chirevu, it's true he was unfortunately shot, but according to official accounts, he was resisting arrest. And for purposes of who Chirevu is, he was a senior ADF commander who was given amnesty in 2005, but went back to rebellion. He's been like the chief recruiter around town, but also the biggest imam for purposes of radicalization.
So you know about Kirevu, you know about this incident. So I find it I find it mind-boggling to, at the beginning, General Muhoozi, to say you have no idea about this incident.
No, I don't have the account you have. The account I have is that he was resisting arrest.
How does one person who is subdued on handcuff resist arrest,
that is
surrounded by armed men,
that is your version,
overwhelmed by men and military equipment?
That is your version. My version is that he resisted arrest, and given the circumstances, he was subdued. Unfortunately, he succumbed to gunshots.
What kind of subduing what man, and then he succumbs to death?
My version
what
is
injuries? He succumbs to what injuries?
He resisted arrest and he was subdued, but unfortunately he lost his life.
You know, there is a pattern, because in Nabweru, in Nikatoke, the young man whom you say should have been the third bomb that was maybe neutralized, gave you information, and he was injured, but also died. After giving you the information, he also died. So, and now, if something happened in Sangi, and it had happened in Katoke, then how is that going to be understood if it is not summary execution?
I wouldn't want to go into those details without better information, I think.
But General Muhoozi, you know that Jose, or if that is his name, the guy in Nabweru also died.
He did, he did.
And now you also know that another suspect in Nsangi today also died.
Yes, he did.
But we also have a police officer, I think CID police officer, who is saying killing of suspects is a fair game. I'm going to ask my producer if he has that comment. Maybe he can play it for you because you're working together. Probably I'll get that later. Okay, so if we have young people radicalized to that extent, ready to march into martyrdom, as a security person, how do you contain that?
Radicalization is a new dimension to this threat, but also it's explainable to the association of ADF, to the international jihadist groups. They've been mutating in terms of affiliation, and that's why you see now this element of radicalization. But also, it's been out in our sources by none other than Baluku himself, the current leader of the ADF, who said, I think in 2018, that they had now officially become a province of ISIS in the region. And that one in our sources explains now that element of extremism within the ranks of the ADF.
Honorable,
to the extent of carrying out suicide attacks.
Honorable Sseggona, we seem to see an escalation because in the past, ADF rebels maybe would throw bombs or throw grenades or maybe leave a parcel somewhere and then it explodes. But now we see, you know, suspected terror people walking, turning themselves into mobile bombs and exploding in public. And by the way, not only exploding in public, because if you look at the pattern, now they seem to have actually even gone to attack security operatives. Because the people, with all respect, who were injured, majority of them were policemen. Isn't that ADF or whoever they are moving a notch higher?
Well, first of all, good evening, viewers. And to begin with, we want to express our condolences to those that lost their dear ones, and also to express our sympathies to those that nursing wounds as a result of this barbaric attack. You know, I do not even know where to start from, but to begin with, yes, it's a big threat, it's a cause for worry, and if there is anything we can do to ensure we do not get into that situation, deeper into that, we should be happy to do. Secondly, an attack on our security installations is an attack on all of us because we are the consumers of the security provided by those men and women in uniform. I am not a security expert, but like any other intelligent being, I think I could know a thing or two and conclude that this is reason for us to worry. Because previously somebody would throw a bomb, would leave it there, perhaps before it detonates. We are able to detect it and call in security. Secondly, and this is why you would really sympathize with our police and other security organs, especially the police. Because on the one hand, they have a duty to provide security. On the other, they have a duty to maintain a good image and PR for the institution. Somebody comes as if he wants to greet you. You don't know what he's carrying in his bag. You want to check. By the time you check, the thing has exploded or he has run closer. Just imagine if God was not very near. And this person at CPS ran inside into CPS deeper. He would have blown the building. Blowing the building, the policemen, and women, and now that the soldiers are fused into the same institution, the soldiers in there, the suspects who are detained in the basement, the visitors, the lawyers who have gone for work. And that's why I've been telling people, I could have been a target in many respects. One, an attack on Parliament, 90% chances are that I would be at Parliament. An attack on CPS, 8 or 70% chances are that I would be there trying to rescue someone. So if there is anything that we can do as a nation, if anything can unite us, it should be this. Going to this gentleman Chirevu, who I represented in Parliament until today, until when he was killed, you get the impression that yes, if he was resisting arrest, the law, and I think Genome was speaking as a lawyer, would agree with me that it is allowed, or I would agree with him that it is allowed to apply some force in apprehending somebody who is resisting arrest. But that force must be proportional to the force used in resistance. One of the things you would look at is, did this man have a gun? Because you cannot resist arrest unless the person arresting you is actually seeing you. So it is difficult to explain how someone was resisting arrest. You are seeing him and he's not armed. Did the man have a panga or what? So much so that you are not able to subdue him without shooting. And two, if you shot at the man, where did you shoot? So your professionalism and skill are called into question. Thirdly, and this is why I find extreme difficulty now, with all the support that I give to the security forces in this, or that I pledge to give, you must equally explain the elements of justice. You tell me that this man was granted amnesty. He went back to ADF. But the man has been staying in Nsanji. You did not detect that, and I'm the nearest, I could be the nearest casualty, because I stay in Budo. So, since that time when he went back to ADF, did you know or you did not know? Or are you knowing now, after this one of Naweru, the one you murdered in Naweru, telling you? You should have known. Therefore, you should have arrested him long ago. So if you tell me that you didn't know, am I safe? If you're telling me that you're clever enough to have detected and known, and you left him out there up to the time when you killed him. But it's not even the first time you're shooting and killing innocent people. And I'm using the word innocent consciously. He, being a lawyer, knows the man was innocent. You did not give him an opportunity to defend himself. What did you recover from his house? You have killed others. Sebulime was killed on handcuffs. Unfortunately, it's something he inherited in the police. The man had been subdued, handcuffed, placed under the seats of a patrol. Then all of a sudden somebody says instructions have changed. Pull him out, put him down on handcuffs, and you shot him. This is not the first extrajudicial killing you're conducting. I have consistently said, when he was CDF. I don't know why I held him in suspicion. That's on a lighter note. When he was CDF, Yasin Kauma was killed by SFC in Arua. And SFC is a presidential guard brigade. The president was not in Arua, but they directed SFC to remain there and conduct an operation of shooting. Up to now, we have not seen.
Okay.
No, before you hang up, from Yasin Kauma, you have Zebra Senyange. The president was on TV saying, it called me and said, we thought you knew about it. That the president can know about an operation to kill a Ugandan, it's not M7 I knew. So, bottom line is this. We must put our hands together and fight this together. But we must not forget that after fighting terrorism, we are coming back to you and starting from where we
So for now, we can be allies for now.
I agree,
Okay.
absolutely, because it's about our safety.
Okay, I think that's another new thing happening. But Dr. Bainomugisha, when you listen to the Honorable Sseggona narrating to you episode after the other, and all of them are sad, of Ugandans who have been executed in extrajudicial manner. And by the way, this week, it is 1 year since the November riots that more than 50 people were killed. Some of them, we are told, because of stray bullets. Can we have robust civil-military relation with that background? Because if General Muhoozi is going to be on top of the game, he's going to need intelligence. And intelligence can only be given by the people. But do they have the trust? Do they have the respect? Do they have the friendship of the military?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kamara, for having me. And my colleagues. I think rather than, we have now a big problem on our hands as a country, but also as the international community, and that's the whole global terrorism. And I think what we should be trying to do is to understand it, provide that understanding. And I also agree with Medard that actually the war on terror must be a concerted effort of everybody. So we need, I think one would want to know the sources of this terrorism. What drives it? What sustains it? And what would be the appropriate approaches of dealing with it? Because I know that we can deal with it. But and I think I want to appreciate, first to also appreciate and send my condolences to the victims, both the dead and the injured, and their families. It is a bad thing. But as a country, as a region, as the international community, we need to deal with this issue. Now, we are dealing with a problem that actually is not necessarily national. It's an international problem that actually we need to understand it. It's global sources, it's regional sources, it's national sources, and then prescribe interventions. And those interventions must be at the global level, at the regional level, and I'm talking about African level, the East African level, and then the national level. At the global level, of course, the whole global political economy that is actually skewed against, especially the North and the South, that produces the wealth-poverty divide. The crash of civilizations, as Samuel Huntington talks about it. Because Samuel Huntington, one of the foremost scholars and the person who directs the US foreign policy, predicted in his book, The Crash of Civilizations, that the 21st century is going to be dominated by the war, which is not about honor or spread of democracy, but the crash of civilizations. Ideology, for example. But actually, here now we have to face it. And unfortunately, while it's a global problem, but it is being fought on the African continent. Boko Haram, ISIS. In Somalia, we have the
Al-Shabaab.
Al-Shabaab, we have ADF, and all this. Africa becomes the battleground of an international problem. So so we need to look at the global problem and then of course prescribe the sources. Now, when it comes to us here, this is not, it has been going on for a long time. I think one would want to find out what has sustained it and now what has changed. I tend, and I agree with we need, of course, to demand a lot from the government, from the security forces, but we also need to appreciate. Like when I saw the policeman responding, and someone is criticizing him of not responding very fast, but actually he's a tragedy. He has a family, he has all this, and this thing is very new. So we need actually to appreciate the security forces that actually are the front liners. It's like this one, the COVID war, we need to appreciate the health workers. But also, I also, as a peace and security person, security scholar, I also want to understand what moves someone who wants maybe to create an order, blows himself, and will not actually benefit from that order that is intended to create. Something is wrong, and therefore we need to deal with that. But coming home, the conduct of our security forces, I think it's unfortunate, of course, some of those incidences, but there is, I think, fear and panic from our security forces. And I would recommend that the security forces up the game. So there's need for training, because it is mutating. There's a need for sophistication on the part of security. There's a need for coordination, cooperation of security agencies. I think the minister will tell us whether that is sufficient, because it's unfortunately, Uganda, like the rest of the world, even in the US, there is always competition among the security agencies that actually creates lapses, and you have this. But also there are sources of this conflict, of this terror, even in our country, like the whole youth unemployment, the hopelessness, the poverty, widespread poverty. We need to deal with that.
Okay. I think you have touched on those very important things. And General Muhoozi is now a minister, looking for why is it that young people are angry to that extent? You know, that those who actually have no jobs and they're poor, there are those who feel excluded, there are those who have their political differences, have reached a level of wearing a bomb and turning themselves into explosives. What can you prescribe for such a problem, General Muhoozi?
Thank you, Mr. Kampala and colleagues. But I want to differ from my colleagues in that respect of trying to rationalize extremist behavior and relating it to limited opportunities. I think that one is new to this country, if you are to go that way, then why would we have similar incidents in the developed world? I would want an explanation in that respect. So I think what makes more sense about this new dimension is this new affiliation to the jihadist groups that I talked about, but not about limited opportunities for our young people that forces them to radical action, including becoming suicidal.
But it is also possible if the jihadist extremism is finding a fertile ground to recruit of a young man who feels he has no opportunity. If people have jobs and feel included, probably they will not be fall prey to the jihadist.
How do you explain 9/11? This is a mind game. It's a mind game. It's a hearts and mind game, and I think the solution, apart from the physical operations of the security forces, lies in the radicalization of young people, in competing with the ideology of extremism. We have to create a narrative that is convincing to these young people, because otherwise you lose them to such extremist ideas.
It appears you know what to do, then why are you doing it? Why you not do that?
We are doing
Why can't you radicalize them?
We are doing it. It's one of the measures actually that I think need enhancement, but it needs consistency, it needs to be relentless, and also it needs to have a long haul mind, because this is not a simple problem that you can easily wish away.
You know, at one point, we are told ADF has bases in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I remember in 2002 or thereabout, before you're a general and before you're a CDF, when I was a reporter, and I think you're also a field officer, I think you are commanding the 53rd Battalion. You, in the war theater there, were doing a good job in trying to contain a problem that shouldn't come to Uganda. You're doing a preemptive strike. In fact, 53rd Battalion was like a phantom force that everybody revered. What happened to some of those abilities of the UPDF of the past that could respond at lightning speed with a double-barreled attack, and Ugandans could be safe?
The 53rd Battalion was actually not an intervention force of a problem that time. It was the last unit of the UPDF in the Congo.
I remember seeing you in Bunia and you're commanding that battalion.
Yes, and actually Ituri province had other threats other than ADF. ADF was more in the Beni sector, where fortunately I also served leading the 19th Battalion, and which is adjacent to the Renzoris on our side of the border. But that said, we have had forays into the Congo, as you know, like you say, to follow the problem, as it were, where it is. And one of the biggest enablers, enduring enablers of the ADF is that safe haven in Eastern DRC. In spite of the many achievements against the ADF we've had, including, but not limited to, the arrest of Jamil Mukulu, that enabler in terms of a safe haven, to organize, to train, to insert sleeper cells in the country remains. And we still engage the Congolese brothers to deal with that problem decisively.
How would you engage the Congolese again? Because the last time you were in the Congo took Uganda to International Court of Justice because of plundering the resources of Congo. In fact, there was a $10 billion reparation charge that you're supposed to have paid. Can such a country allow you in after the havoc created with a case at the International Court of Justice?
But they did worse damage by giving playing host to ADF, although we didn't quantify. Our case wasn't persuasive enough for court. They did enough damage to Uganda. You know what the ADF did in Kasese, in Wundibujo, in all these places. That said, the leadership now in the Congo, fortunately, is willing to engage, and we are pursuing that matter. But we have also, in the past, after we had left, engaged. You remember when we struck with our air assets, the ADF bases in Congo, but we didn't exploit with ground forces because of this limitation. Without permission of the Congolese government, we wouldn't insert foot soldiers. But we hopefully, because now, fortunately, the ADF is a regional problem, and the choices are limited even for the Congolese, because it does havoc also mainly in Congo, but also in the other countries. So I think it is in their interest also to allow intervention for purposes of decisively dealing with this challenge.
Honorable Sseggona, the commander of the ADF, Jamil Mukulu, the one we knew then, is serving his time in the Ugandan jail. But that did not stop Sheikh Musa Baluku to emerge, or somebody called Benjamin Kisekeranyo to emerge. Just like the phoenix, they're always rising from the ashes.
First, I want to speak like someone who has gone to school, to the extent that Jamil Mukulu is on trial. And one of the accusations is that he led a terrorist group. That's an essential ingredient. So I do not want to call him the commander, because he's a suspect. Number two, assuming that there is something called ADF, and also assuming that ADF is cooperating with, we tend to call it ISIS, but I think it is Islamic State. Assuming they are cooperating, there is a more important question, because amongst the people who I saw on camera blowing themselves, none of them was an Indian, none of them was an Arab, none of them was a white man. They are our children. And that takes me back to the question that you posed to the minister. And I think Dr. posed it or said it before. We must also go back and do a pattern. We studied the pattern of this terror attack. One, that they are Ugandans to begin with, and that's where we all agree. Number two, look at the age group. Number three, ask which schools they went to. Number four, ask before this which jobs they were doing, now that we saw the names. you're going to find one common denominator, that these were disadvantaged Ugandans. And this is not to rationalize, like the minister is saying, this is not to rationalize the kind of discipline or indiscipline. But you must study the root cause. We are leaders. We have a duty to these young people. You ate their future by stealing their schools. You ate their future by stealing money for the hospitals. Somebody somewhere ate their road. Somebody somewhere ate their food and made them hopeless, thereby creating a fertile ground for them to be recruited into this. There are examples we've seen. Yoweri Museveni did not go to the bush because somebody had rigged his election. He had lost it flat. But he said, how can Obote steal Semogerere's election? He went to the bush. But there is another example. My brother, the late General Pecos Kutesa, wrote and said the reason he went to the bush is because those Obote soldiers made President Museveni sit on the ground when they arrested him at Sileka. Said, how can they arrest my leader like that? So we need to go back and sit, and this we must address as a nation. Like I said, this war cannot be fought by one group. We need to do it together, win together or lose together and sink together, because there is no hero in a sinking boat. If there are factors, be they economic, political, or social, we must address them together. If there are issues that must be addressed by the parents, the fathers and the mothers of those children, as we bring up the children, we must address them. If there are issues we must address as government, we must handle them as government. For example, and this is why I agree with him. You know, previously, we were not exposed to the, and I do not want to racial profile by saying we were not exposed so much to the world, Arab world, where some of these things started from. I mean, we were exposed to Europe, Britain, France. It is where we go, and things were done differently. But today, somebody's son is holding a phone. By going on YouTube, like he said, on Google, etc., he's learning all these things. Number two, we are exporting our children into slavery in the Arab world. Go and study in the Arab world where people do suicide bombing. What are the factors there? Do we have factors similar to theirs that could be responsible for this? In a country like Uganda, or in Africa generally, where suicide is a taboo, suicide alone, so much so that when we find someone, people used to commit suicide by hanging on the rope. We would cane you, the dead, dig a hole there, not a grave, cut, and there were specific people who were supposed to do that. Cut the rope, you fall in the hole we have dug there, and would simply pour soil, no burial. And after that, we'd do a lot in terms of cleansing. So how did we cross from that paranoia against suicide into suicide bombing now? So we must look at those factors. Finally, we raised something in Parliament today, and which the government has since dismissed in a very short time. You know, sometimes they don't think. They speak impulsively. Why I like General Muhoozi is that he is not in a hurry to talk. In security, you must not be in a hurry to talk. You should be in a hurry to save. You know, we said, look, since you know that this is ADF, other than donating their labor to the Islamic State, why don't you talk to them? Find out what their problems are. We have many rebels that have since joined and worked with this government. The late Honorable Gulawori had a fighting force. My brother General Moses Ali had a fighting force, and the Abiriga group.
The Musa Chwerus.
The Musa Chwerus. You know, you have talked to them. Bamuze. So, can you also attempt that.
Okay. Now that the issue of talking peace, you are a security and peace expert, Dr. Bainomugisha, and the Honorable Sseggona is giving us examples. In fact, the government of Uganda has spoken to West Nile Bank Front, who have spoken to Konyi. Remember the Juba peace talks? Yeah, isn't because ADF has been here for 20 years. Do you think they can engage them? Can we talk to them?
Yeah, I think it's not only ADF, and that's why I said that it's important to do a conflict analysis and understand the root causes, and then begin to engage. Engaging is not cowardice. It's not cowardice. And actually, in the US, they say they cannot talk, they cannot negotiate to terrorists, but actually they negotiate with terrorists. So I want to support his point, but add something. I think, first of all, government must. It's a realist worldview that the government must project power, so that people don't just make violence as a joke or a way of making money. Because I participated in the peace talks with the RRA. I was involved in South Sudan, and it works. You see, the US has actually negotiated with the Taliban, and they are in power. The US has also, I think, they have facilitated the peace process between the Palestinians and Israel, the PLO. And actually, PLO of Yasser Arafat was considered a terrorist organization, but that was facilitated. So I think two approaches. The government must strengthen its capability to project power, but also may need to use both the carrot and the stick. And I think the carrot and the stick, because perhaps ADF is not what we think is, could be a very big thing than we think, as he says, it has allied with ISIS, it has allied with Al-Qaeda, and therefore it may be complicated. But I think back home, there are certain, especially dealing with the fertile ground, the recruiting ground. General, the whole issue of actually the interventions even may save the future and succeeding generations. And you know, this has been complicated by COVID, because COVID has decimated economies of the world, and ours has not been saved. Many children are out of school. Many children even don't want to go. You saw there was a documentary, was it done by NTV? Girls don't want to go to school. They are saying they are old. They want to start breeding hair and that kind of thing. But most of them pregnant. What about the boys? So I think, of course, there's a need seriously to come up with an economic empowerment for our young people and the women, targeting them, and especially areas. And there are areas actually of recruitment. There are areas. Most of these guys actually come from, is it Kamuri? Maybe the general may know. So economic empowerment, dealing with the youth problem. The new government has come up with the youth livelihood program, WAPE, and all this for women. But I think they need to have targeted and consistent programs, specifically because security, development is security. Development is security. And deal with the youth, because we are going to have a big problem even if we didn't have ADF. Because you see, disgruntled politicians will also take advantage of this. And this country has a checkered history.
Disgruntled people.
No, especially, you know, our politicians have that habit of capitalizing on a problem actually for political capital. And I'm not, and this is non-partisan. I'm not talking about opposition.
Something called hostile dependency.
Hostile what?
Dependency.
Yes. So people always take advantage of an unfortunate situation to get political capital. So that one we have to deal with it. Understanding the ISIS, ADF, Al-Qaeda nexus is very good, so that actually we can actually discuss with them. You know, I can give you an example. Joseph Kony. The negotiations with Joseph Kony, I won't tell you the role I played, but the negotiations that took place
in Juba,
odious as it was, weak and perhaps without a serious political agenda, it was imperative for government and to raise the government states to another level, to decide to speak to Joseph Kony, who was killing people who had no political agenda, to even build his capacity to negotiate. He didn't have that. But once that was done, even the government understood Joseph Kony. And when they came here, I remember I was involved, and they went around this country. When they went back, Joseph Kony collapsed. He disagreed with the OT because OT had read it here. Most of their soldiers had enjoyed life here. they went back to the bush and started fighting. But also the peace negotiations paved the way for opening up for LRA to get out of Uganda. And UPDF sealed the border. They have never come back. I would have loved, of course, that a peace agreement is signed and these people are rehabilitated and they come home. Because peace is cheaper than pursuance actually of war.
Okay, just hold on to your point, gentlemen, because we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, let's interrogate that more, and maybe try to find out what does Sheikh Musa Baluku really want, and do we understand his agenda? We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guests tonight are Dr. Bainomugisha from ACODE, Honorable Medard Sseggona, and General David Muhoozi, and we're discussing terror in Kampala and how that can be stopped. And earlier, Dr. Bainomugisha was talking about the examples of talking to people who are opposed to government, like Joseph Kony, and the effort that was made. And so, General Muhoozi, do you have an agenda of that sort, like UPDF used to? Reach out to the enemies and talk to them. Maybe you can find the man now who's in charge of ADF, Sheikh Musa Baluku. Find out what he wants, and if he wants to be brought on the peace table, then you do it for the sake of Uganda.
Thank you, Kamara. I have no problem with talking. It's one of the tools of engaging, but it takes two to tango. Otherwise, it becomes a monologue. So, but what forces talking? I think even before you talk, you have to engage the clutch pedal. Even Joseph Kony had reached his tail end when he started talking. He was in the Garamba. He was no longer here. All these groups, you need to exert pressure. If you can do pressure and talk simultaneously, well and good. But what must come out first is projecting the capacity to govern, and that one you have to use the elements of national power, like he said, and then you talk. And we are open to talking, but we shall also keep engaging with the other tools of instruments of national power to protect the citizens of this country. If the opportunity arises, we shall exploit it. Talking about the other idea of opportunity as it relates to the drivers of extremism, I think we need to be cautious. Without empirical evidence, we shouldn't make conclusions. Like I said, how do you explain children who have been well-schooled, well-raised in the West, joining extremism, going to these countries? We have many cases. Honorable Sseggona talked about the President and General Pecos, may his soul rest in peace. Pecos was an army officer. He was not, he didn't lack opportunity. The President was the Defense Minister and the Vice President of the Military Commission. So it wasn't because of lack of opportunity that he went to the bush. So I think we need to be very cautious before we make conclusions on relating lack of opportunity to the drivers. I
think they were relating it, General Muhoozi, the fact that when people are poor, excluded, and feel they are not taking part in sharing the national cake, that alone creates a fertile ground for whoever wants to come and...
Not alone.
Not alone, yeah. But that is one of those areas that will create a fertile ground for whoever wants to recruit them,
We were talking about factors that could precipitate. They could be economic, they could be political.
That could be taken advantage of.
That could be taken advantage of. And I want to sound as civil as I can. Yes, General Museveni was Vice President of the Military Commission. It was a defunct government because it had lost power. Pecos, yes, was a soldier, but I told you that he was not broke. He went there and said, look, how can you humiliate and dehumanize my leader, somebody I look at as my role model? You dehumanize him. So I was saying the factors which are economic, political, or social. The players are not only government. Government must do its part. We, the parents, must do our part.
Absolutely.
You know, we must do our part. The teachers must do their part. I did not even want to go into the usual discussion of whether President Museveni was broke or not. No. Today I said we should stand as one. And when we finish this war, we come back and say...
You still have unfinished business.
Yes, we have unfinished business. And the other thing is the factors. For example, the people you negotiated with out of ADF, where are they? They are dead. Talk about Captain Musisi. Talk about Sheikh Chiria. Talk about there is a gentleman called Serogala who was killed in Mengo. Talk about Mohammed Chigundu, etc. Do not allow any suspicion around that could cause others not to come out of the bush.
And who killed them, Honorable Sseggona?
I don't want to say you're the suspect. I don't want to say so and so is the suspect. But I hold you responsible. Why I hold you responsible is because it was you to provide security to
Actually,
them.
when I was still beginning to report, there was a man who was, I think, chief of staff of the ADF, who was nicknamed Benzi. I don't know if you remember this guy, but what was so striking about that when he was captured, and I think Major General Bainomugisha by then was, I think, Division IO, and was taking him around areas of Kisomoro in western Uganda and Rwenzori to show this is the man that was wreaking havoc in your areas. Benzi was still having the big man mentality. He still wanted these other junior soldiers of the UPDF to salute him. And I could see, enjoying himself because they're driving him around. But he never at any one moment looked like a prisoner of war. He always enjoyed.
Yes, but I'm asking you, if it assume it is ADF or other forces that have been killing them, are you conceding that now they have overpowered you? That you bring those people out of the bush, incorporate them into the army, they are your senior army officers, like Major Chigundu, then they come and snatch them from you. Then how safe am I? So the point is this, whether you're the one who's killing them or not, you must explain.
Certainly not, Honorable Sseggona.
Well, I don't want to insist that you are, and neither can I deny for you. And you know why I can't deny.
So
we didn't
Dr. Bainomugisha, Dr. Bainomugisha, we have reached a point where Ugandans are ready to blow up themselves. I even don't know whether they are blowing up themselves, by the way, because somebody can carry a parcel and then he has somebody commanding him. He says, go here and go there, and somebody deploys him remotely. That is also possible.
The theory General Muhoozi brought up with respect to this, this young man at CPS. He received a call from somebody, and perhaps it is the call that detonated.
Because it's also possible, at this point, it's also possible
that
he did not know he could be carrying his thing, and then he's under instruction, and he's walking, and when he reached the target, somebody who's looking at him from a distance can blow him up. That's also possible, before he think he just marched into martyrdom. But the element of making all these, improvised explosive devices, if they are actually making them in mass, whatever they...
I think we need to interrogate this. It's not that somebody can really... Can you carry some parcel from somebody you do not know?
No, of course, somebody will give it to you.
But there is a command structure, of course.
Okay, let's come back to General Muhoozi. It is possible that there are those who can carry a package and they are blown from a distance.
It's very possible.
And it's possible there are those who will do the kamikaze style, and they just blow up themselves.
Yeah.
And also possible, it is also possible that somebody may not even know at all what he's carrying. He's given money.
You had a vice president who said he didn't know what he was carrying on the head in this country.
No, I thought that, and I was happy when Medard said that is part of, we need to find a solution together. And also to sympathize, actually, from as a peacemaker, my sympathies goes to even those those terrorists which can surprise people, because I'm trained to empathize with them, what drives them, and they lose. And so, in order to help these guys, is to put yourself in their situation and then rehumanize them from dehumanization. And so I thought that we need to look for solutions to this problem together. And in order to, we need also to send messages, reassuring messages, especially to these people that are being lured now. I remember some of the inducements were, a beautiful hotel woman, a good house, all those kind of things. I think it has to do with poverty. and actually now deal with the issue of de-radicalization, but also deal with the whole issue of regional, of collective regional security. I think this problem, in general, honestly, we have a problem with our colleagues in Rwanda, but I think the East African community needs to deal with this problem because it's like a prisoner's dilemma. I imagine they would do the same to any of these countries, and therefore they need to fast track or to ease tensions within our East African community and work together collectively on this security problem and build confidence that we can actually go back to Congo together and deal with this issue. That's an intervention collectively. That we can engage them is very important. That the international community owes us a responsibility because actually we are carrying their problem here, that they need to not only to provide, just give a flash that they are likely to be terror attacks in Uganda, but be involved and in solving this problem. I think that is going to be very, very, very critical for us. But also, at home, in terms of politics, our governance, if we are committed to the values and principles of democracy, it becomes very, very important. In a situation like this one, democratic countries rally around the flag. In the US, when the US is at war, party lines disappear.
I mean, that's what I'm impressed that Honorable Sseggona is saying for now. I'm going to work with you, but after this we'll have our finished business to start.
And that's what the unfinished business is what I fear. Yeah, because the unfinished business seems to be also something that could lead us into that one. I think what we need to be doing is to have commitment to national objectives. For example, that this country should be peaceful and stable, that we have embraced democracy, that we can disagree in order to agree, that when we are under attack like this one, we need to run around this. Afterwards, of course, we got politics. Democracy is competitive, but within a legal framework, that we don't even injure each other. Because politics is not a do or die thing. No. It's a desire to serve our people, because actually the end state is to improve the welfare of the citizens of this country, to lift this country out of this condition to a better world, and indeed the whole of Africa. And to be able to do that is actually to work together, is put our forces together. But at the end of again, Africa, it is the same story of Africa. Why does Africa fail? Because Uganda has made serious progress. Now, you say temptation of going back. Not forget what is happening in Ethiopia. A very sad story. Because this was an African success story, growing at an average rate of 12%, a unified country, prosperous country, drawing international acclaim. Remember that the rates are now used to attend the G7. And now, brother against brother, and who is actually even turning these guys against each other? Perhaps the new imperial kind of thing. So I think Africans need to rally together. We need to sort out our issues and actually focus on a bigger picture.
Okay. General Muhoozi, I'm sure when you hear the Honorable Sseggona saying, for now we are allies, for now we are going to look for Uganda, for now we just want to make sure that everything we're doing is we're pulling together. I'm sure that should be like sweet music in your ears, even though he's promising you after that, we haven't finished the business. But I think that's what statesmen do. I think that's how people who love their country do. And you know, for the guy who sometimes was viciously opposed to say, wait a minute, now you need my help.
Because I'm not sick.
but for now, I'm taking a pause on that. We have a problem that is perhaps giving us an existential threat.
Do we have a choice? And I can't agree more with the Honorable Sseggona. Because now this is a war among the people. The front line is everyone literally. And we need every effort on the table to tackle this. So it's also time maybe to rethink the national interest and to inculcate it in the young people. We must have a baseline of agreement as a country, as a people. So from that one, I think even handling such threats will be easier. That said, I think it was Honorable Sseggona or the doctor talked about regional collaboration. And talking about the tackling this from the source, we've engaged the Congo before, but our terms were, if we are to re-enter Congo, it should be in a sectorized way. Preferably, we want to be along our side of the border. We don't want to be in the Congo and be everywhere. There were some, at one time...
you learned your lesson the hard way. At one point, you were in Gadolite, in Kisangani, and beyond.
But also Congo...
The results were not good, General Muhoozi.
The Congo is so big, and you can't be everywhere. You end up being nowhere.
Supposing they donated the part to us.
That is another thing. That is another thing. If they decide to be part of it, if they become part of East Africa.
You know what you have just said is very explosive. It's like another bomb.
It's another bomb.
Okay. Right.
So we insisted, and we still do, that if we are to enter Congo, we sectorize, we remain within our part of the border, the frontier, we deal with our problem. And then we take responsibility, you know, because there are some players who are saying we can be in the Congo everywhere. We said no way. We need to be in a place, take responsibility for what we are doing, and deal with our problem. So we shall keep engaging on that premise, and hopefully our Congolese
I hope the responsibility does not mean even administration.
No.
Okay. But Honorable Sseggona, in the Congo, we have the United Nations. The United Nations, I'm told, is using almost $1 billion a year, and they have been there for 20 years. And you know, and you talked about organizations.
Since 60s.
20.
Since 60s.
Okay, well, at least these are the thing that I know.
Yeah.
I remember when General Muhoozi was commander of the 53rd Battalion, before you left Bunia, you handed Bunia to the Uruguayan forces of the United Nations, and probably they are still there, or maybe another country has taken over, with $1 billion a year, and there's nothing to show for it.
Well, I think it's true. One, the Chinese Prime Minister was asked in 1965 about the effects of the Second World War, and the guy said it's too early to know. It's too early for me to judge them, but I want to start with my own, and that's what the Bible tells me. One, I have no problem with whichever strategy our political strategists or military strategists come up with. At the end of the day, bottom line, by the way, I'm not looking for anything bigger than safety and security. And it is for that reason that I keep appropriating huge sums of money, over which I will demand accountability from General Muhoozi and group. I agree that we need to go with the strategic interest. I agree with him, but in addition, would want to say that, of course, this time going in an organized way, we're not where we go for different purposes, cross purposes. Some go for security, others go for gold, another one goes for a stick, others go for timber in Congo. That's number one. But that's assuming even that the threat is coming from Congo as a territorial or geographical entity. There is also a crisis of confidence in what they are telling us. That to the extent that some of us may not agree with them entirely or 100%, that what they're telling us is the truth. There could be other factors. But bottom line is this, like I said, I'm not a security expert. How do we guarantee peace? I told you there are factors, economic, political, etc. Politically, there are those that are clear. Whereas NRM is in Kayunga campaigning, Kyagulanyi cannot speak on a radio station in Mbale or even in Lira, assuming you don't want him to attract crowds in a football pitch. What stops him from communicating on radio? Very simple, basic things, very basic things that government has failed to do. We need to address those. But I want to go back to us, the parents. At the end of the day, these are our children who are blowing themselves up, or who are allowing to be used in blowing up their own country. Number two, it was so worrying that a security installation can be attacked, because it even gives an example to other potential, and I don't want to use criminals because I don't know, I'm not sure I have enough security against them, but other potential or prospective attackers to know that, oh, by the way, it is possible. If there is anything we need to avoid in this country, of course the price is going to be high. Number 4, the enforcement, we should be extremely careful. I remember vividly the words of then Chief Justice at the Requiem Mass for the late Joan Kagezi. General Kale Kayihura came and said, look, gentlemen, you need to expedite the amendment to the Constitution for us to be able to detain beyond 48 hours. And to me, that's a threat to human rights. Martin Luther King Jr. said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And after that, Kale Kayihura saying that, the Chief Justice said, hello, do not be stampeded into making bad laws because of bad people. So do not be stampeded into violating or abusing rights of citizens because of this situation. And I think it was Doctor who said that, some people, the reaction may panic, etc. A professional soldier, a professional policeman has no room for panic, has no license for panic. I saw the gentleman who was, I think, being accosted by a colleague member of parliament, the police officer. I thought it was unfair. This is a police officer who is in the middle of fire. You don't even know what he has done, whether he has communicated with people who would be of assistance, and you're attacking him. Yeah. If that man has a pistol, he can shoot you because he sees you as an enemy. Supposing he doesn't even know you, supposing he thinks you're one of the attackers, I think, yes, we must leave some room for civility in our dealings with one, the security officers, and the reverse, because they are human beings. Finally, on this, let's also look at use this opportunity in quote unquote to address the plight of our men and women in uniform. Some have been talking to us, and I'm glad now he's the minister. How does that person survive? People under those conditions. Look at the threat now on their nose. They are feeding badly, sleeping badly, paid badly. Their children are not getting the basic things. I think it is now time to address
Is that so, General Muhoozi?
I know. He's not one of the...
he does oversight role as a member of parliament, so yes, he could have visited some of those. I remember in the beginning days of NRA, you would imagine, well, things were not okay because you're just beginning. But now you've been in power for 5 years. Your soldiers should be doing much better. Back in the day, I don't know whether you're in the guerrilla war, but they would say Mzee Anapanga. Are you still telling them Mzee Anapanga?
He's still pangering after 35 years. So, but the point, and I'm being as objective
still
as you possibly could think of, because investigations, you've just been talking about Mukuru, Jamiru Mukuru. You have always told us before you captured him that the man is a terrorist, he's this, he's that. 6 years in jail. He has not been tried. And he's not alone. There are many other people you are not trying. So you need to address all those factors across the board. Justice, democracy, security will have to move together, and economic empowerment.
Okay. Dr. Bainomugisha, I've just heard Honorable Sseggona talk about parenting, family. Do you think there's something wrong with the family level on how we are raising children? Probably we have lost it. I want to believe with him, because now the Minister of Gender, in fact, is coming out with something called parenting guidelines to give to the Ugandan families. I think we are really losing it. By the time the government is going to teach us and even give us parenting guidelines, then there's a problem on the family, like the Honorable Sseggona is talking.
I think there is a global problem. It's not only Ugandan problem. Even they will tell you across the world, the family units are breaking up, and the COVID has worsened the situation. Actually, COVID has also exposed the brokenness of our family. And if the family is broken, then you have a broken society generally. So I think that one, we need to go back to our basics. And therefore, religious institutions have to come in and play a role. But they have to play a role. And again, we are raising a generation from these broken families to lead broken families as well. But for me, really the answer, you may also discover that some of these people participating in this struggle actually also come from particular place. And so it's not that every child in this country is involved, but their potential if they remain broken. But I wanted to propose something, and I want to agree with him, and General I think agrees with the conditions of our security forces so that they can be combat whatever ready to combat the situation. But they must also be taught. Community policing in the police must be enhanced, because you know you are dealing with the community to actually offer intelligence, to offer. And I think I was discussing with the gentleman in charge of community policing. That's an area that they have to actually to scale up, build confidence within the public.
Robust civil-military relations.
That department needs to be capacitated and needs to be supported by even the parliament to deal with this problem. Not only this one, but the entire crime, because actually crime was also on the rise. And with this COVID and poverty and blah, blah, we are going to have a challenge. But on the political level, I wanted to propose something. I think he entered on a national dialogue. I think, and I think Jen also agrees on the need to identify those national interests, which we all ride around. Then we can play politics around. As I told you that during war like this one, during COVID like this one, in the US, the Democrats and the Republicans, the party lines disappear and they focus on that. But I think we need a conversation. We need a national conversation to clearly discuss the future of this country, especially situated, because this is like a broken country. It's conflict prone. And I sympathize even with people who are driving, those people in power. It's a very complicated country, located in a complicated region, the Horn of Africa, the Great Lakes of Africa. This is very conflict prone. And now look everywhere. And actually Uganda is at the front line. And people, of course, sometimes question, why are you in Somalia? Why? Sometimes it's important to keep to prevent the problem from afar than actually the fire on your doorstep. So that national conversation, and I challenge my brother here, because you are part of government. So you seem to be heaping everything to the minister. But you see, there are three arms of government: judiciary, the executive, and the parliament. You appropriate, you provide oversight. So if there is a need to finance and focus on the welfare of our security forces, then parliament, you have a role. Appropriate, and of course government to do that, to give the necessary resources.
I hope you know that they have given them more money than any other sector.
The security and
yes.
But then they need to follow up through. But what I wouldn't want is the parliament to say, to blame the executive and not the
right. Dr. Bainomugisha, Honorable Sseggona and General Muhoozi, we're going to take a break, and the host on the spot is going to come back. But when we come back, we shall open the line so that you too can be a part of this discussion. You're going to see the numbers on the screen. Please pick your phone and call us and tell us what you think. And should you be maybe in disagreement, we agree, that's okay. We have to disagree. But what we are going to, we have to agree for you to debate and disagree. But what we're not going to allow is abuse. So disagree with respect. We'll be right back. Welcome back to On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guests tonight are Dr. Arthur Bainomugisha, Honorable Medard Sseggona, and General David Muhoozi, and we're discussing terror in Kampala, or even by a large extent terror in Uganda, and how can we respond to that. You know, this week, like I said before, General Muhoozi, it's exactly 1 year since the November riots of 2020, where more than 50 people were killed, and some of them, it is said they were killed because of stray bullets, and others were rioters. But these cases have never been handled and completed. In fact, the president talked about compensating those who were killed in riots by stray bullets. Even the compensation has never been done. So when you are working in that kind of background, how do you expect people to help you with intelligence? Because you need people to get credible intelligence for you to fight the enemies of the state.
Indeed, we need people, Mr. Kamara, and speaking about those riots and the victims and their compensation, I want to start from the point of saying that life is invaluable. And you can, and I think saying that you're compensating lives is, I wouldn't want to call it, because what do you compensate? You can't bring back life. So I think the most I could call it is maybe compassionate assistance to those who lost their loved ones. According to what I know, I don't think, and I want to state it here clearly, that the government has abandoned it. But they are trying to do it meticulously, because apart from those who lost their lives, we have also people who were injured, some of them critically, including a certain lady I remember who was pregnant, and she fortunately gave birth, but she lost the function of her spine. And by the last count, I remember we were trying to organize that she goes to India using our docket at Internal Affairs. So there's something being done, and when it is ready, the country will be informed.
We know, General Muhoozi, it has been a year. And I'm wondering, and these people are hurting, some people are sick,
Yes.
others are still nursing wounds, and there's something is being done. Really?
It
After
is
a year?
Yeah, it will be done. It will be done, Mr. Kamara. It will be done.
You're a member of parliament, and probably this concerns you also, because some of the people who were injured are people within here, or even could be from Busiro. I mean, how has parliament taken up this issue of the November riots?
Well, to begin with, I think what you're resurrecting is the pain that we have gone through.
You know why I'm bringing it before
Yes,
is that
you're right.
because, you know, some of these could be grounds that are making people to become prey for, you know, for recruitment to radicalization.
Like I've told you, if everybody conducted himself like, or the same way President Museveni conducted himself in 1980, this country would be on fire. So the least qualified person to shoot at somebody demonstrating should be Yoweri Museveni. Because for him, he picked guns. While I do not applaud the people who go burn tires on the road, etc., those young people, I think the blame is even stronger for a man in uniform shooting at that person without resorting to alternative means. Because in Uganda, we have not radicalized to the extent of saying, of somebody seeing bullets flying in the air and not running away. But particularly for November 18th, and before, even Kayunga, right? You remember, you call them Kayunga riots. I call them demonstrations because I have that background of knowing what exactly it was. It was a demonstration. You know, there's been shooting with impunity. When somebody shoots and his commander-in-chief comes up and supports, you cannot receive in good faith a promise that I will make whatever he calls it, compassionate assistance, because you are not compassionate. First, you're the tortfeasor. You're the killer. You're the person who wounds. Then you tell me, oh, I will give you this. Secondly, you have a government that is slow at thinking and acting. My brother Bainomugisha says they want to do a meticulous job. And for them to do a meticulous job, they need a year. The other day I was attending a wedding where my brother Colonel Fred Mwesige was in attendance. Then some man was complaining they ate 5,000 of his cows during the war. And Colonel Mwesige promised him, no, I will take you to the president, we will give you a medal. And I said, look, this must be a very good government, that someone eats your 5,000 cows, and after 36 years he promises you a medal. So someone kills your mother, your father, your daughter, your sons, and says, don't worry, I want to be meticulous. After 1 year, I'll see what to give you. That is the equivalent of what you said, Mzee anapanga, alikuwa anapanga. I was on TV. I saw a lady walking, I think around Kafume Mukasa, carrying, I think it was a basket or either maize or banana, with her son walking behind her, and all putting his hands up like this. And somebody came from behind and shot at this young boy and killed. So the point is that the impunity that has grown in this country amongst our security forces, I applaud those that have maintained a high level of discipline. Before he came in, I was joking with him. Even at Parliament, I was calling him all sorts of things and we were laughing. Those are the disciplined people, and I owe them support in whatever they are doing. But the impunity that has grown with time, with people shooting at each other, a gun by its nature is a killer weapon. And somebody points it, somebody in those demonstrations, there were some people I saw at the balcony of their shops, and the soldier aims at them, you know, a bullet. It's not even a stone that is going to injure. It's a bullet. At the end of the day, the only way we can maybe not forget, but forgive and say, let's heal the nation, is going forward. What is it that we can do politically to assure each other that let's leave the past in the past? They are the following. We need democracy, but we are not demanding for too much. We need respect for human rights and human life. We need empowerment for the people. You know, when you deal with corruption, we have a lot of money that can sort these things out. The roads are impassable, etc. And we keep piling or increasing the security budget. Like, as a consumer of security, I do not want to appear to be seen as speaking against the security budget, especially when I'm chairing a committee that handles post-mortem reports. At the point we are making, maybe, unfortunately, he's not a politician, although he occupies a political office. I don't know what he does there. But we need to sit on a political desk and say, let's agree on the following, because they are basic. Democracy is basic. Human rights, basic. Economic empowerment for our nation, basic. Infrastructure, basic. The fight against corruption, basic. Then the rest we can disagree.
Okay. All right. You know, when we look at the report that is given annually by the Uganda Human Rights Commission, General Muhoozi, in most cases it is singled out the UPDF and the police as, you know, the violators of your rights in Uganda. And Dr. Bainomugisha, when you listen to Honorable Sseggona, you know, telling us the killings that have happened here and there by the men and women in uniform, did you get a sense that the state is inherently murderous?
No, I think because he's in politics. And now he understands, of course, this is your second...
no,
third term, so now very experienced. But I want to... first, I stated that this country's political history is characterized by violence and bloodletting. We've killed each other, we've done this, and I think time should come, or has come, for us to open a new page and say we've wronged ourselves. Because actually what also doesn't seem to convince Uganda is that if there was a new order, would it to be different? And that's why I'm talking about a conversation, a national conversation, to agree and stop these accusations and counter-accusations, because all the way from independence, even the colonialists established this by force, and the colonial state was by conquest, and the post-colonial state is by like that. So
they actually put us an end to call Uganda without our choice.
Exactly. So talking about deepening democracy, and I'm glad we've our constitution and the preamble of the constitution recognizes a political history that is characterized by that violence, and it seeks out to deal with that, and we need to deal with that. But unfortunately for us who are actually outside as an analyst, I see that both the government and the opposition, they owe us as Ugandans to assure us that that sense of maturity and commitment to peace and prosperity of our country, and to put out in the past the shame of failure, of poverty, of bloodletting. You know, the Economist magazine of 2000 carried this big headline, Hopeless Africa. And I'm tired of that. So just building on what he's talking about, and I think Jen also is not opposed to it. I think what the government needs to do even now is to diffuse the tension. I think there is a need to diffuse the tension. Diffuse the tension, there's so much tension, diffuse it. And actually, the Greece government has an experience into that. The accommodation policy that was adopted in 1986 completely defeated so many, a multitude of fighting groups completely were absorbed and integrated, and they are here. So there's need to diffuse the tension. But secondly, the opposition also must also wake up. We must have a real opposition, royal, patriotic, that is also committed to the principles of democracy. I think there's something that I see among Ugandans, the threats. Each one of them issues threats to each other. And then for us, so we look, it's like the animals in the animal farm. You look at it. So there is a need for the opposition. Because also, if you also are issuing these threats, you should be in Rosetta, you should be in that, you should do that. So sometimes actually it hardens the positions. So I see hardened position in the government, I see hardened positions in the opposition, and for us we don't see hope. But you owe us the responsibility, and actually, you know, these guys are now in parliament.
All right.
They are our leaders.
Hold on to your point. Let me call for the participation of those Ugandans you're talking about, who maybe are not hardened. You have watched the situation, probably have been in Kampala, and you're here. So what do you make of what has been happening? I have a call online. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, in Tungamo. Let me ask my producer to turn down the volume. It is a bit too high here. Yes, go right ahead, sir.
I'm Godwin from Tungamo, Nyamunuka.
Yes.
And for the first time, I'm supporting Honorable Sseggona.
Okay.
For the first time, I'm in support of Honorable Sseggona.
And why is that?
Because he's not like Honorable Nambos who criticizes everything, even in a situation like this.
Okay, you just called from Untungamo and you're saying for the very first time you're supporting Sseggona. And why? Because he's not like Honorable Nambos. Okay, all right. That's your opinion, and I have to respect your opinion. Let me try to get other callers online, and the numbers on the screen, call us and tell us what you think, and please make it precise and concise. If you have a question to anybody here, mention that so that you can be answered directly by that person you want to respond. Hello? Okay, you can keep those calls coming in, and by the way, Honorable Sseggona, you have a supporter in Ntungamo.
But he took too long to support me, although he's welcome.
Okay, I'm going to let those lines open so that you can come in and tell us what you think, and please make it very brief, but also make it very civil in case you disagree, and it's okay to disagree. So you've listened to these two gentlemen, and they've been, talking about our situation, analyzing where we are, maybe some of the errors that are committed by the security agencies. General Muhoozi, how would you respond to them?
Thank you, Mr. Kamara. I've heard, and I want to say that we are not fault-free sometimes. We are human. Some of the mistakes happen. Many times we take action, but unfortunately we don't communicate the action. Or sometimes even the action taken is redacted. He's a lawyer, he knows. So we learn lessons. We learn lessons, and I think we can do better. But if I can also go back to the lines of action available to us, especially in light of what happened recently, I think we, first of all, first line is to do our duty as the state, exert pressure, and all it takes. So operations are continuing, and I'm very glad also. It's not just a supporter from Ntungamo, but also I'm also a new supporter of Honorable Sseggona, that he's willing to give us all it takes to do our job and do it well and professionally. Then two is public vigilance and unity. And I'm also on that note enlisting the support of Ugandans about this cause. It's a good cause, it's a just cause, and we need to rally around each other to confront it. Then and speaking about what other measures we need to do, I think we need to reorganize, especially traffic in the city. And I think it may come with inconveniences, and that's why we need the cooperation of the public. But I think we need to make it as difficult as possible to the bad people, by decongesting, by limiting the vulnerability, by avoiding parking on the streets. I think we can do better.
But isn't that, hasn't that mainly been propagated by people in higher positions of authority who have no regard at all of traffic rules? Today I was entering Serena
I'm talking about congestion.
Yeah, but look, because if you are an officer, minister or otherwise, you are not following the rules, what are you teaching the other person? Because you're supposed to be exemplary, but they are not exemplary. You know, everybody, you know, they have turned their vehicles into some kind of an ambulance. They have a siren under there, they have flickering lights here. I saw somebody entering Serena Gate and they were having those lights in where, and the vehicle was actually not an ordinary vehicle. I think I went out of my way and I'm asking, what are these things for you're having in front? What are they for? I just don't understand.
The good thing, how the good thing, the public is also mobilized to resist such excesses. I know sometimes it happens even to me, you know. You see the boys hooting and then you're in a jam and then you tell them, well, where do you want those people to go? But some of them are bold enough to say, you fly.
I know.
You fly. You fly. So, but I think the bigger point, the elephant in the room is we can do better. And to decongest, especially the cities, and make it as difficult as possible for the bad people.
What can we do to decongest?
To cause
because
trouble.
The buildings have no parking in them.
I think one way I think about is drop and go, and pick later. Drop, go, especially the CBD. But this, I think it's a discussion we can have with all experts, and I think there's room for improvement. And
I'm looking forward towards that, because I am not proud of this city, of our city, because of the chaos, because of the congestion, because of almost anarchy. It is just a jungle down there, and yet I understand we all need to come here and make a livelihood.
It is something where, one, it could also be direction in terms of investment. In other cities, you find a 20-storied building, which is for parking, purely parking. With such, you can afford to decongest the streets. Secondly, even traffic does not simply mean that you're parking on the street. Even going out of Kampala is a menace. It's menacing. After Parliament today, I had a vigil, a vigil in Chanja. But getting to Chanja took me about 2 hours. Some of these bad roads need to be worked on as a security measure, and that as quickly as possible.
To give more outlets.
Yes, we need to decongest the main outlets.
Tributaries. And
yes, like for example, you go into Entebbe Road, the rest of the roads on the right are bad maram, Nakauka, etc. I think we need to look at that very critically. And I want to take responsibility. He said yes in Parliament, but I'm dealing with the budget that my brother brings me. If I went to Wandegea police station, for example, and they found me behind the barracks trying to assess the situation of the of the houses where the policemen
welfare.
my friend, I would be charged with terrorism. So I want to keep within my lane, ask him to do his work, bring me and facilitate me to do my work.
Gentlemen, our time is out, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to begin with you, Dr. Bainomugisha,
Yes.
very briefly to give us your parting shots tonight.
No, the parting shots is that it's unfortunate what has happened, but it's actually manageable.
Okay.
And actually, that's why leaders are there. The country needs to rally together. This is a problem that can affect everyone. We have a country here, we have a future, and we need to bequeath a better country to our children and the children of our children. And therefore, here politics disappear. We need to work together, and that's what I'm looking at. And we need to equip our security forces, especially the police, the community policing, and of course civil-military relations, so that we can rebuild the trust between the security forces and the citizens, and collectively, then we can have collective security and development.
Thank you. Honorable Sseggona, your concluding remark?
Yes, thank you. I think Ugandans must accept to own their country. And ownership of their country means that in bad times like this, we must work together. Idi Amin was a president not elected, but he determined a lot in terms of people's welfare. By saying on this, I am happy to work with General Muhoozi, I do not mean that his government is good. It's a bad government. But now, for me, I need to keep safe and alive in order to remove his government. So I want to fight this war, ensure safety of myself and other Ugandans, who I want to show a good governance, a good government when I remove General Muhoozi and the group. So please keep vigilant. Do not move unnecessarily. Do not go in crowded places unnecessarily. And watch the neighborhood. Report to this, to the security agencies in case you detect something suspicious. But do not give alarmist information. Like someone says, there's another bomb here, there's another bomb here. I think we need to be serious with this because it's about life.
Thank you. General Muhoozi, your parting shot.
Yes, like I said, exert the pressure, public vigilance and unity, be your brother's keeper, reorganize the traffic and the cities, robust communication, and we need all the platforms, the media, and everyone to make a coherent and consistent messaging to the public. And then collaboration, the region and international, including with the DRC especially, where the problem is. And the UN, we have always voiced our exception to how they do their work. You know, there's one diplomat who said their mantra is hurry slowly. In Rutoro, cross quickly, but don't run. But we want them to cross quickly so that we wipe out.
That's a job, you know, to us.
Thank you.
All right. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much. And I like even more how you have ended this. Because we can have our differences. But Uganda have had our tumultuous past. We have always been able to pull through. I think in times like these, we need to defend motherland and rally behind the flag. Because if we have hope and not hate, probably we can prevail. But I'm sure we shall prevail. Good night and God bless Uganda.
Thank you.
Yes.